Hey everybody, it's Brian Burns. Welcome to this episode of the B2B Revenue Leadership Podcast. Hey, a big thank you for everybody who's connected up with me on LinkedIn and shared the content on LinkedIn. I really appreciate it. I've been putting out some videos on my thoughts about sales and kind of teasing some of the podcast episodes. So if you could throw me a little one of those little thumbs up, I certainly would appreciate it. If you don't want to connect, you can just hit the follow button if you'd like. But I really do appreciate everybody who's telling their friends about the B2B Revenue Leadership Podcast. We also have a company page on LinkedIn that you can follow as well. Today, got a great interview. Going to be talking about building out an inside sales team and how is it different than an outside team? How do you define what a lead is, when it's right to transfer to an account exec, some of the political nuances of it and how to avoid them. I've got an expert on this in the area. It came highly recommended by somebody who used to work with him. So we're going to get into that. But before we do, I want to make sure you're listening to the Brutal Truth About Sales and Selling podcast as well, if you're in sales. And if your team wants to get those meetings, I've got Start the Conversation, Get the Meeting. The course is done insanely well because now it's organic. It's not pitchy. And you can be reporting under marketing or sales and can really increase those quality meetings that we all want. The amount of money that people are spending trying to get a cold outreach meeting is just insane today. Why not learn how to do it easily and simply? Also, are you checking out nudge.ai? They are doing some great work on coming up with a quality-based dashboard. In Salesforce, you can see the relationship strength that you have with your deals. This is insanely powerful. So when you're looking at a deal and you're forecasting it, what matters more than the strength of the deal? So make sure you're checking that out. Nudge.ai. I'm going to have the CTO on shortly. We're going to be talking about how fast things are changing and the intelligence side of sales and marketing, and it's all relationship-based. Everything comes down to it because the know, like, and trust is based off of know, liking, and trusting somebody, and you don't do that with a cold outreach. Also, Covideo came out with some templates for your team. If you want a nice, warm way of sending a holiday hello, don't do it with an email, text, or an HTML. You got to do it with video. Check out covideo.com. Follow their company page as well and look at those templates. It's a really cool way of staying in touch with your clients. Let's get into the interview.
Absolutely. Ivan Gomez, president and founder of Next Stage, a consultancy company that is focused on helping organizations establish or improve their existing inside sales organization.
And how'd you get interested in sales?
Well, I've been in sales for the last 25 years, since I can remember. And it's been a fantastic journey from humble beginnings, as I moved from my homeland of Colombia and moved up to New England, got into the fleet management sales. And one of my clients that I was servicing for quite some time invited me to send my resume as I was finishing my MBA to his technology company, and which I did. And that's how I got into technology sales and evolved from that point forward into a fantastic journey of refining my skill set and advancing my career through the ranks.
And what made you decide to go out on your own?
Well, 2 years ago, I saw a great opportunity to become a founder of my company, Next Stage, and bring the knowledge and expertise that I have for the last 20 plus years into one practice called Next Stage.
And what does Next Stage do? What's your main focus?
It's mainly focused on helping organizations establish or improve their inside sales operation.
And how do you do that?
What we do is we meet with presidents and CEOs, mainly VPs of sales. We'll go and do a deep dive into the infrastructure of their inside sales organizations. We start with a conversation. We conduct an interview process, conduct a gap analysis. We map their entire process. We literally diagram their process, and then we'll come back with some recommendations, and we present those to the CEOs or the VPs of sales of the areas where they can actually improve.
And what are you typically seeing wrong?
Well, there's many organizations have a disconnect between marketing and sales. That's one of the things that I've seen coming out quite often. Marketing is in a silo, sales is in a different silo, and there's no communication. So one of the things that we promote is this alignment, between marketing and sales. That's one of the things. The second thing that we see is the misuse of social selling out there by sales reps. I call that too much social, very little selling. So that's one. And the third one that I see is the handoff process between inside sales and their field counterparts, because there's not an agreement in terms of what will constitute a qualified lead, a sales qualified lead. So those are some of the things that we see. And there's one last item, which is going after the shiny object. And basically what that is there's a lot of technology in that effort of getting modernized and getting the latest technology. CEOs and VPs of sales are dumping a great amount of technology into their sales organizations and not really realizing their impact that the technology has in their sales ranks, and the adoption process and the change management that it takes, and the IT overhead that it brings to the organization. So those are some of the 2 or 3 things that I've seen in the marketplace right now.
And how about like the mismatch between what the reps are telling you and what management is telling you? Is that something that you sensed?
I do, and that's basically due to the lack of visibility and lack of a process. When you have transparency in the process, when you have a really set process in place and clear, concise metrics, followed by a management operating rhythm, then there's transparency. When that disconnect is out of there, then you'll see the water gets a little cloudy.
And are people bringing you in to increase revenue or to just streamline operations, or both? Or what is the output that they're looking for from you?
A great question. At the end of the day, Brian, everything has to lead to an outcome. Okay, yeah. But in order to achieve that outcome, you need to fix a few things. Okay, so yes, we're fixing things, and we're providing guidance and expertise and coaching, training, development. But at the end of the day, that has to be measured by tangible outcomes.
And what is that? That's revenue, or is that productivity? How do they measure you?
Well, there's several things. One of them is operational improvements. Okay. The second thing that we've seen out there, when you have operational improvements, you also see, increased productivity by each rep, because there's clear expectation of what is expected of each individual. The third thing is, increase sales skills as they go out to the marketplace and to the battlefield, and they are actually executing on the things that we're teaching them. Consequently, all that leads to a good outcome.
And are you sensing that the marketing is obviously very hard today? It's very noisy. People know how to get around the conversion by putting a phony baloney email address or an email address that you can't trace to a human being. So a lead isn't what it used to be. Is that a big problem that you see, or?
Yes, and that goes back, Brian, to the statement that I made, the tremendous disconnect, between marketing and sales. Okay, the most basic element, one of the things that we promote at Next Stage is this notion. Okay, what is a lead?
Yeah.
Okay, and having a clear, concise definition of what is a lead. The second thing is, what is a marketing qualified lead. So there's two elements. So you have two boxes. One, the definition of the lead, is the ideal persona, the ideal demographic, firmographics, and you define that, based on your market or your industry. And the second thing is, are these individuals raising their hand or actually saying, okay, I have interest. And when you have the A and B combined, you have a marketing qualified lead.
Okay. And then how much of the rep's time is devoted to those versus just going and finding people who should be interested or in market?
Well, usually individuals that raise their hand, they either attend a webinar, they see a blog post, they download a white paper. It's about 30 to 40%, which leaves the balance, the remainder 60%, as a white space opportunity to go and prospect. The key element right here for reps is to have a concise method and program to successfully prospect in their space. Okay, the old-fashioned element of just praying or banging a lot of calls and all that, it doesn't work. Okay, when you go out in the and do cold calling, one of the things that we promote is this element. You got to have a plan and leverage an omni-channel approach, to be able to deliver your message and to prospect correctly. From having pre-call planning and blocking time and selecting your market and your messaging and your email cadences and your script for email and your script for voicemail, your script for the conversation. All those elements have to take place in order to have a good prospecting effort.
And what is your recommendation as far as KPIs on both the quality and the quantity side?
I'm very keen on looking at activity as a whole. I recently recorded a brief interview with the American Association of Inside Sales Professionals. I talk about this very subject. Okay, so we combine all the elements of activity, which are leading indicators, with the output, which are lagging indicators, and we actually measure ratios. Okay, so how many activities are required to create an output? Okay, so it really varies by industry, but at the end of the day, you need to look at all these metrics in order to determine how you're doing, as a group, as an individual, and also using those metrics to determine what are the areas that you're looking to coach on. Is it the front end of the sales cycle? Is it the opening statement? Is it closing? Is it gaining commitments? All those metrics, have to be used for coaching. And this is where also managers are also missing the mark. Okay. We're capturing a tremendous amount of data on our CRM, but what do we do with that data?
Yeah.
Okay. So I hope that answers your question.
Well, the age-old question that this has been around ever since, I've worked with inside teams, because before, it was kind of in flux, inside and outside. They really didn't have KPIs. Then all of a sudden, once the CRM came around and a dashboard, then everyone went kind of KPI crazy.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, lo and behold, the reps just faked it. And every time, certainly, I've seen anyone really put too much focus on KPIs, what you end up having is a bunch of actors instead of salespeople. And you get the same thing on the forecast, right? Because you think pipeline is an indicator, but no, pipeline's an indicator of what you want to see. It's not an indicator of what's going on.
Yeah.
How do you prevent that kind of what I call playing office or playing business versus doing business?
Well, yeah, that's a good question, and it comes down to, do you currently have a good sales process in place by which you have very defined activities that are expected by the rep, by your marketing team and outcomes by the customer in each step of the sales cycle. That's one thing. The second thing is you got to inspect what you expect. Okay, so managers have to inspect that. If you have a good discipline around your sales process and you have a good cadence around it, then you're starting to increase the accuracy of your sales forecast.
Yeah. And how do you keep it focused on quality? Because, sales is a quality profession. Quantity of activity only helps if it generates revenue. Otherwise, it's just busy work and distraction.
Yeah, Brian, I'm going to go back to the definition of, back when I was in grad school, I have a professor who actually made us memorize the definition of quality. And quality is defined as compliance to specifications.
Yeah.
Okay. If you have, if you expect a certain amount of quality, say, okay, here's what we're looking for out of each particular meeting, and the rep meets that criteria, then that is a qualified, lead or qualified opportunity, whatever, depending what you are. If you're outside those parameters, then it's not. Okay, so you have to measure, you have to define what are you expecting for quality, and second, then you have to measure, for the amount of, outputs that you're getting from each rep on those opportunities that they're qualifying or meetings.
Yeah, I like that. And how do you come up with, what is a defined for the account exec? Once this inside person, what is a qualified? Is it a meeting? Is it a conversation? Is it somebody willing to talk? Is it somebody who should be qualified? I mean, how do you quantify that?
Okay, this goes back to an element that you have to keep in mind that is called the funnel math. Okay, how many opportunities you need to are required in your pipeline in order to make your number, and then you backtrack that and you have to assign the number to the number of reps that you currently have. Okay, right. So now that being in place, you say, okay, we define we have a definition of what an opportunity is. Okay, if the rep meets that definition, then they can put a check mark, they can get the point, they can get the award.
That's my question. What defines what's a good definition of an opportunity?
Okay, so a good opportunity is one where you have your basic qualification criteria. That's number one, and you have whatever they are, whether you use BANT or you use CHAMP or you use MEDPIC, whatever, however many items you have on that. You got to keep in mind that the more stringent your qualification criteria is, you're going to have fewer opportunities in the front end of the sales cycle. That's one element. The second thing is that you have clearly defined next steps. Okay, so one of the things that I promote with the reps that I work with is two things. One, you got to meet the qualification criteria, and you have to have next steps, because you can have the qualification criteria, but if your prospect doesn't show up to the meeting, it doesn't help. Right. It has to show up to the meeting, and then obviously your account executive will take it from there. That's one thing. The other aspect is you need to have good communications between your inside sales and your external reps. I recently wrote a blog post entitled "You Set Up the Meeting, Now What?" And in that blog post, I actually, I talk about, you gotta communicate with your rep, and now that we have so much technology, you can actually share the call recording with your account executives. Hey, listen, here's, what is happening with this account. I talked to so and so. These are the challenges that I uncovered. I uncovered with LinkedIn, the following items. They recently made a press release with the following things, and you can actually, provide the account executive with a brief overview of what is going to happen on that call, so this person will be armed to be successful and continue to advance that opportunity forward.
And how do you keep the political dynamic between the account exec and the sales development rep? Because the account exec knows the sales development rep gets comped on those meetings. So there's almost a little bit of a conflict here, because if one person says it's a good opportunity, then they get the check, and then the rep goes, well, this isn't as good as I hoped. And you also get the thing, well, I like my inside guy, but he's not producing enough meetings, so I'm going to make up that the opportunity was good. So he gets credit for it and stays motivated.
All right. Yeah, great question. So this is where both groups have come, they need to come to the table, and there needs to be a standard operating process. And we actually craft literally a document that says, okay, here's the outcome, here's the responsibilities of inside sales or business development or sales development. These are the responsibilities of outside sales. Here's how everything is going to be cataloged on the CRM system, and here's the handoff process. And there's going to be an accept and reject process. Based on the metrics and the expectations that we currently have for that particular group. If those items have been, we have checks and balances on those items, then we have a good work process, and a good work environment between inside sales and outside sales. Now, not every, and having the metrics in place, the accept and reject process is crucial because it allows the rep to make improvements. And there are some opportunities to say, listen, I thought, they had this problem and they have this situation, we agreed to next steps, and the rep shows up to the meeting and none of those things were in place. So that will provide an opportunity to coach the rep in terms of doing a debriefing. So if you use that as a constructive element of your process, then you're actually making progress because you're learning from your losses. It's kind of like a win-loss analysis for opportunities that get hand off to the account reps.
Yeah, and back to like BANT and Medic and stuff. I can see how those are productive and useful with inbound opportunities where somebody's already determined that they are interested or in market. But I find them worthless, well, not worthless, but not productive when you're doing outbound. Meaning, like, if the inside person is calling into an account and they've got somebody who's in the decision path, interested enough to talk or take a presentation, where does that sit? Does the inside person handle that until they've determined that they're built up enough of a need to go on site, or do you get where I'm going with this?
Yes. This has to go back to what is the account executive looking for, and what is the organization looking for. Obviously, we want to make the most use of quality time for the account executives when they go up to the meeting. Okay. Now, if the opportunity is not ready, then it has to go back to a nurturing element where more information might be required, where we need to probably map the organizational, because in today's environment, according to the CEB, there's 6.8 or something decision makers. So we need to start mapping. There's not a single decision maker nowadays, and usually the decision maker is not usually the high-ranking individual in the organization. Is the person who owns the pain. Okay, so one of the biggest challenges that we have right now is, do we have a process by which we have convinced that individual that is worth making the change or making improvements? So if the answer is yes, then we should probably move the process forward. If the answer is no, it requires a little bit more nurturing.
Yeah. And what is the hardest part of your job? Where is the most amount of resistance when you're at a client?
I think the biggest challenge that we see, and anyone that has been in consulting, is this element of change management. Yeah. Okay, everyone comes in. You come as an outsider. You bring a level of expertise. One, you need to have a good executive sponsor. Second, you need to have a good project plan, and getting the buy-in from the different constituents that you work with. Either on the marketing side, on the operational side, on the sales side, on in the analytical side. Getting these individuals to work with them and have them work with you.
And one last question: have you seen any clients have success moving this sales development role into marketing versus sales?
Here's the definition. The person so should inside sales or sales development be under marketing on sales or sales? The answer to that is whoever has the bandwidth and the ability to properly manage these individuals. Yeah. Okay, that's the key element. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if they're under marketing, doesn't matter if they're under sales. My personal preference is these guys are in sales. They handle the front end of the sales cycles, and it should be treated as such. So that would be my preference. But the answer to your question, Brian, is whoever has the bandwidth, the ability, and the time and the skills to manage and to properly manage these individuals, that it should be under that particular business unit.
Excellent. Hey, I really appreciate your time today. Where do people go to learn more about you, your company, and connect with you?
Absolutely, Brian. People can find me at nextstage.io. They can find me on LinkedIn. And those are the primary places. They can also send me an email at Ivan, IVANG, at nextstage.io.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that interview. Hey, how's your pipeline looking? This is a critical time of the year where we have to be closing out everything possible, but we also have to be preparing for next year. Is your pipeline full? Are your deals really identified? Do you have a game plan? Have you mapped out the process? If you need help crushing your number, are you making the type of income that you want to? Or do you just want to become better at sales? How about dedicating a year of your life, 1 hour a week, maybe a little less, maybe a little more, and you really crush your number. That's what the courses are all about. If you go to b2brevenue.com, go to training. If you're wondering if it's right for you, does the podcast make sense? Is the things that I'm talking about here a lot like what you sell and the way you sell or the way you want to sell? Then why not invest in yourself? Give yourself a Christmas present. And you'll probably get 100 to 1,000 times an ROI on your investment in this. Think of all the money you spent on college. Where'd that get you? Where'd it get me? Not far, I guess. But learning how to sell, it is the most critical skill in the world. And everyone out there is teaching what used to work. I'm teaching what does work. The people who have failed at sales and now are trying to teach other people what worked 20 years ago, it just doesn't work. Everybody who comes into the course says this works. It's fun. It's natural. It's organic. And you get to understand how companies really buy. Now, sure, you can read books, but sales is a doing profession, meaning it's just not knowing. It's practicing. It's applying your skills. It's getting better every day. It's building upon your skills to get a compounding effect. And the courses aren't just content. You get content, of course, a lot of it. You probably, you got to put at least a half hour in a week. And you can watch it anywhere. You can play it on your smartphone, play it on TV, whatever you want to do. But you also get community. So you get to hear how other people are doing things, what they're running up against, share what you're running up against, and solve those problems. And really get better at sales. And get the job that you really want, the income that you really want, which gets you all the other things. Because it's all a means to your happiness in the end. If you want to talk over the course and learn more about it, or just get a stronger feeling if it's the right thing for you, be happy to schedule a call. The calendar link is right there on the website, under training. Pick a 15-minute slot to talk about the training, not talk about your personal issues. And we can chat it up. I can fill you in and any more details, answer your questions. It is I like to have a year-long commitment. Why? Because it takes a long time to get good at it and to really practice it and to do it. So it's not just secrets, it's skills, it's abilities, it's strategies, and guaranteed you'll blow it away next year. So before you give a present to anybody else, give a present to yourself and sign up. Cool? Okay. Make sure you're checking out the show notes also. Do you know how to hit the little details button or just page up on the podcast player? In there is a bunch of links to all the partners of the podcast, as well as my content and other social channels like YouTube. Have you checked out the YouTube channel? Check it out. Connect up with me on LinkedIn. Did I thank everybody yet? I really do appreciate when people like, comment, and share my stuff. And I'm always mystified why people will send me a connection request saying they like stuff, but they don't like it, meaning they don't hit a thumbs up on one of my videos or blog posts or discussions. That just helps cascade it to your audience as well. Get the word out because you're my sales force. You're the best sales force out there, but be that 1% that actually helps and gives back a little bit. Be a little present to Brian for the holiday season. I certainly would appreciate that. Got some great episodes coming out. Make sure you're checking out the other podcasts. The Sales Questions podcast is really just answering everyone's questions that I get through LinkedIn. Feel free to ask as many questions as you want. Happy to answer them there. Also, what else? B2BRevenue.com. and the B2B Revenue Leadership Podcast. We got a great co-host coming up, a new series that's going to start probably in December. I think you're really going to like it, especially if you're thinking about how the leadership of a company thinks differently than you. You just learn, especially if you're selling to salespeople or marketing people. I think you'll really get a lot out of it. Or if you want to go into management, to get a sense of what these people do and what makes them successful. That's it. I really appreciate you listening. Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to this episode. And I really would appreciate everybody who goes onto LinkedIn, connects up with me or follows me there. If you happen to see some of my content flying by, if you could throw a little thumbs up or a comment or a share, I definitely appreciate it. It helps spread the word about the podcast. And make sure you're checking out my website, b2brevenue.com. You can get my free book on how companies make product selections. It's a real book. It is on Amazon, but I give it away for free. Just register there. It'll email you a link to it, and you can just download the PDF from there. Also, if you want to check out the courses, start the conversation, get the meeting, or closing the complex sale, and you have more questions about it, the short answer is there are video courses. You get access for a year, but it's also a community. What does that mean? You can ask questions anytime via voicemail or email. I answer them within a week, put them into the course. We have office hours every other week. It's an hour long course where you can I pick a topic, answer questions, you can ask questions. Also, you can schedule one-on-ones for free, and we just talk through your particular use case, and that gets shared with the course. So if you don't have time for office hours or the timing doesn't work, or you just want some more one-on-one help, that's all included for a whole year. So it's really a year to go from where you are to where you want to be. And so it's not just videos. It's not just knowledge. It's practice. It's getting feedback. You can send me emails. You can send me your presentation. I'll help you with anything that you need to close the complex sale or get the meeting. And you can check out them at b2brevenue.com. So that's it. I really appreciate it. And please tell somebody about the podcast and let me know if I can help you in any way. Oh, and you want to hear some results from the course? Well, here you go.
I love the approach. It's working for me just fantastic. If I sent you some of the emails, which I should, the conversations that I'm having with people, I think you'd be blown away because they're not really about work. Yeah. I've figured out if you can kind of get personal with them, like one lady, it's all about her family, kids. And then I sprinkled in a little bit around work, and she's LinkedIning, sending me messages on LinkedIn, photos of her family. No, I'm not even kidding. I should show this to you. You'd be stunned. I was shocked. And we're going to lunch on September 6th. And yesterday she shot me a LinkedIn message and said, "Hey, Ron, why don't we get on the phone and do a video call beforehand so our lunch isn't so awkward? We're like barely not meeting each other for the first time." Oh, holy cow, right? Like, this is unbelievable. So this is not the first time that this has happened. She's kind of an extreme, but I'm starting to figure out a pattern where I can actually make this a process, So
good. Yeah.
I'll show you that. So it's getting to that point. And every time I do this, I'm like, God, this is unbelievable, So.
And it feels better too, doesn't it?
Oh, Brian, let me tell you something. To be able to go to lunch with her, I'll even talk to her on the phone, right? We're going to talk about family, kids, work-life harmony, because I shared a thing with her from Bezos about work-life harmony. This is where the conversation will start. Now, at some point, we're both not stupid, right? We know we're going to talk about work. We know why we're both there.
Right.
But to kick it off this way is so much better. And to end that lunch with the last 5 to 8 minutes of telling, well, what are you guys doing with digital